Good morning, everyone. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and joyful Kwanza. It was our big discussion this morning was, what do you say before Kwanza? Happy, merry, joyful? And Suzanne Cardinal said joyful, so that's what we went with. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for being here this morning. And thank you to all of you at home that have allowed us to come into your living rooms through the wonders of technology. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and joyful Kwanzaa to all of you. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Reverend Dusty Ripplemeyer. I am the spiritual director of this amazing community, and I'm just really grateful that you're here with us this morning. So I know that there have been different times over the years when I have shared with you. I get a little cartoon or a little drawing with some saying every morning from an organization called Story People. And this morning I got this really wonderful one that was just really apropos and reminds us that this Christ consciousness lives within all of us. So one time on Hollywood Boulevard, I saw a young girl with a baby. It was a crisp winter morning and her hair shone dark purple in the sun. She was panhandling outside the Holiday Inn, and the door clerk came out and told her to be on her way. And I wondered if anyone would recognize the Christ child if they happened to meet. I remember thinking it's not like there's any published pictures, and purple seems like a good color for a Madonna, so I gave her $1 just in case.
One candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when the right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice that justice and freedom demand. Light one candle for the wisdom to know the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering and those who died long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger and not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly that we keep it alive in that flame? What's the commitment to those who have died, who would cry out they've not died in vain? We have come this far, always believing that justice will somehow prevail. This is the burden, this is the promise, this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Don't let the light go
Thank you, Cindy. Do I have, this is the 3-hour service? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Good.
I might be leaving early.
Good. Good. I'm putting this right here. Is that okay? Maybe I should put it on top. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Merry Christmas. How many of you have opened some presents already? And how many of you are hoping? Okay. Okay. Well, this is a time of giving and receiving presents and time of making wishes for the new year even. And tapping into wishes and thinking about your wishes. May I ask you a question? Ruth? Yes. And you don't have to answer this, but just in your own mind. And the question would be something like this. What, if you could list your greatest needs to have a great life, what is it that you need for a great life? If you were going to get 3 keys for a beautiful life, what would those 3 keys be? And let me give you a moment to think about it and see if you can come up with 1 or 2 or 3. And I'm not going to ask you to share. I mean, this is just something, within yourself. Greatest need for a powerful life. And I'm going to suggest my 3. My 3 are, number 1, I believe that we need power. Now, sometimes power can get people in trouble. And so I'll preface it by saying spiritual power. And the reason is because sometimes life can be tough. Sometimes life is hard. And so we need power in order to stand. We need power sometimes to move through situations. We need power sometimes so that we can grow and so that we can discover. So my number 1 choice, number 1 need, and I think this is for humanity, is spiritual power. And the second one, for me, would be peace. Peace is a wonderful thing. Peace makes all the difference in the world. And peace makes all the difference in our lives. So peace is a foundation that we stand on. So I've got power, I've got peace, and I'd like for the next one to be a P also, but it's not. It turns out to be an L. And the third greatest need is going to be what? Love. It's going to be love. Love makes the world go round. Now, I'm not talking about flimsy, fakey kind of love, but I'm talking about the real love. And the real love is really powerful. It's strong, sturdy. And so I'm talking about that kind of love. And so those are the great needs of humanity, and those happen to be the 3 major topics that Reverend Dusty and I are going to talk about. And we'd like to hang those 3 ideas on 3 holy days. The holy days being Hanukkah, Christmas, and Kwanza. And so let me tell you just a little bit about Hanukkah in the beginning. Now, Hanukkah is a minor Jewish holiday. And if you're reading the book of Maccabees, which you'll find in some Bibles, if you read that, it would almost seem like what you're reading happened just yesterday. It seems quite up to date. It talks about Syria invading Israel. And the king of Syria is Antiochus Epiphanes IV. And his great-grandfather was one of the 4 successors of Alexander the Great. And so this guy is coming into the situation with lots of intent and certainly lots of power. And he made a decision. The Greeks, when they would take over a group of people, a nation, weren't interested in simply defeating them, but their goal was to transform them, to change them. They would say their goal was to educate them. And so as the king looked at Israel, he made a decision. And he thought something like this: these people are worshiping the wrong God. These people are reading the wrong books and the wrong materials. They have all the wrong ideas. And so they marched in and they took over and basically enslaved them. So it was a shock and awe. Remember shock and awe? Happened a few years ago. Well, it happened back then. And so it was a big, powerful, bully nation taking over just a tiny place. And the Syrians were asking some embarrassing and some intrusive questions. Questions like, so what's all of this stuff you're doing with killing all these animals and collecting their blood and taking their blood to this huge altar in your temple in Jerusalem and putting it all over the altar and having these draining pipes that are draining all the blood out? What's up with that? I mean, that seems very, very primitive. And so one thing we're going to have to do is stop all of that kind of stuff, because we like animals. We value animals. We don't want to be killing animals because you think you missed a commandment or something. And then this notion of not eating pork. Have you tried bacon? I mean, bacon is one of the great, great foods. We use it always in our holy suppers, and you people are refusing to even be around it. So let us show you what we're going to do. And so the soldiers went into the temple in Jerusalem, and they slaughtered pigs and put them all over the altar and all in the temple. To the Hebrew people, that was an abomination. And then they took the pig blood and poured it all over the altar as well. So they're not being all that nice culturally to these people. And then they said, what about this weird language you're speaking? This Hebrew language is quite out of date, and nobody really knows what you're talking about. So we're going to gather your children together and begin to teach them Greek. We're going to develop a gymnasium complex in every town so that we can train all your children to be healthy in body, mind, and soul. So it's a very different education. If you call education what you've been doing to your children, it's going to be a very different kind of thing. And we want your sons and daughters to learn about Socrates and Plato and the beautiful plays of Homer. So we've got great plans for your children. So that's the kind of thing they're presenting. And then they added, and this Sabbath thing, we're going to use Saturdays to, your kids are going to be in school on Saturday, so you don't have to worry about the Sabbath thing. And most of you will be working on Saturday anyway, so the Sabbath has got to go. We are a cultured people. We have many, many gods, and we accept many gods, and you people claim there's only one. We have images and pictures and all kinds of manifestations of the gods. And you say your God can't be seen and there's no pictures or no statues at all. And so that's what we're doing. Now, how do you suppose the Jews in Judea responded to that? Karen thinks not so well. If you can imagine, they said, wow, this is fantastic. We've been wanting some progress here, and so we like the idea. We feel like we've just had an election or something, so something really exciting is happening. Oh! Well, that's not what they did. Of course, they were totally outnumbered, and they didn't like it at all. They were outnumbered, and they made a decision they were going to fight back. And they made a decision they were going to fight back and fight back hard. And it was called guerrilla warfare. And they were going to fight the way some of the Native Americans fought a couple hundred years ago. They refused to be Greekicized. They didn't like the idea in any sense. A country priest named Judas Maccabees began to gather forces, began to talk about it. He started with his sons. And even though it was just one man and one family, that one man and that one family started a radical revolution. And just beginning in that small beginning, with an enemy so much larger, they defeated them. And they won. And after winning, one of the most sacred things they could ever do is cleanse the temple. So they went into the temple and they were heartbroken with what they found. They have candles, and the candles are to burn all the time. They're never to go out. And all the candles had been destroyed except they found one. and one was burning and had a little oil still there, and they figured the oil would only last a few hours. And so they were heartbroken, and they wondered how could they keep the fire of God, which that's how they thought of it. How could they keep this fire burning? Because they had to use kosher oil. They couldn't use just any oil, and it takes at least 8 days to create that kind of oil, the sanctified oil. And so they only had a small amount, and they prayed. And they prayed for the impossible. They prayed for a miracle. And they prayed that the light would continue to burn. They came back the second day, and the candle was still burning. The third day they came back, and even though the oil would have only lasted a few hours, it was still burning on the third day and the fourth day. And that candle burned for 8 full days. And then by then they had the new oil, they developed the new candles, and they could continue the fire burning. And so the miracle was all about that candle, that light continuing to burn, because that kind of thing was absolutely impossible. And so that's about spiritual power. You and I, probably most of us, like the dramatic, if it's a positive, beautiful kind of dramatic. We like miracles. If we could only believe that things can happen that look as if they can't. Miracles. We humans like some kind of magic, and we'd like to believe it when the Bible says all things are possible. And all of us would like to believe that. And that's what this story reminds us of. Millions of people in the world celebrate the possibility that miraculous things can happen when we believe and when we hold on. And so what do we learn from this story? Let me mention a few things. One, we learn from this story, don't give up on your dreams, even if everyone around you should laugh at the dream, even if all your friends say logically this could never, never happen. If it's a dream within you and you have that passion inside of you, we learn from this story never to give up on your dream. And then secondly, we learn that our greatest resources are not visible. Everything, the spiritual traditions tell us, everything is made from what you cannot see. And most of us know that idea. We know manifestation is manifesting something that we can't see physically, and it's just manifest into the physical world. And the greatest things in the world are going to be things you can't touch. The greatest resource you have is your heart. And your heart has things like courage and faith. And faith is believing something and being sure of something even though it cannot be seen. It's the power of falling down and getting up again. Falling down and getting up. Falling down and getting up. Falling down and getting up. When I was a juvenile delinquent, I was probably 16 or 17. No one really knew quite what to do with me. And my dad took me to this old guy who was probably 65 years old. Old. And he was the superintendent of the school system, and he was said to be good with kids, which I happened to be. And I remember him talking to me, and I said, well, I've done some things that, not so good. Stole a few things, got caught, stuff like that. And he said, I tell you, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. And I still remember James K. Wood for telling me that. I still remember that because he made such a powerful point of it. And that's exactly what this means. We operate not on things we see, we operate on something that's invisible. The third thing I learned is that the universe is tilted toward goodness. Good, not bad. Toward those who tackle odds that are way against them, who take on dreams that seem much too big for them. who make predictions that no one else would ever believe. Because the truth is, you are not alone. You have those resources, and the entire universe conspires in your favor once you point the way with your intention. Everything moves in that direction. And fourthly, I learned that it's important that we take our future into our own hands. We can't really depend on somebody else. We have to make a decision what we're going to do with our lives, and we move in that direction. And we pause and we look up and we ask, well, in this situation, what could happen? What could happen? And the answer often surfaces, almost anything could happen. And so you take your future into your own hands, and you take action, and you keep moving. You keep moving. And then finally, we learn that it's a great idea to lift other people. It's a great idea to light someone else's candle. Reverend Dusty mentioned last night that when you take your candle and you light another candle, even your candle seems to expand in the flame. It grows larger. And so the real question, I suppose, in this situation, their calling was to take their nation back. Their calling was to cleanse their temple. What's calling you? And come on, I mean, something's calling you. You may wake up in the middle of the night and think about it. You may wake up and think, I'd like to do this with my life. Over the next year, what would you like to do? Over the next 5 years, what would you like to accomplish? What's moving you from inside? Because I'm going to suggest that you resist the dying of the light. And don't be flimsy and falling apart and not really standing for that passion that's inside of you. Be like that small candle that's standing in the wind, but still is burning. And so for some of us, that means we actually have to put our shoes on and walk. Because you make a path by walking. We don't just stand around with our hands in our pockets saying, where's the path? Where's the road? But we create the road by having that intention and then doing something. And so what is your calling? What is the calling? Someone said, and I like this quote, look at this burning house of a world. Look at it and proclaim, I'm going to add a log to the fire. I'm going to add my light to this darkness. And so that's the challenge. That is the possibilities. Miracles do happen. And that's what this story reminds us of. You remember Tom Hanks when he was on the island, and he was a castaway. And he had his only friend, Wilson the Ball. And he said to Wilson the Ball, you never know what the tide is going to bring in. And those are powerful words. And so if you're stuck in a corner and they're educating your children in ways you don't like, and they're closing down all these things like with Hanukkah, that kind of world, you remind yourself you never know what the tide's going to bring in. If you want your life to be different, if you want to bring your passion to life, and you're thinking, well, that can't happen, I'm backed into the corner, you pause and you say, you never know what the tide's going to bring in. Because the tide can bring in absolutely anything. When I was just a young boy, I liked girls, and I had a little girlfriend, and she lived a few miles from me. And the fastest way to get to her house or to get back to my house was to walk through the cemetery. And so I remember sometimes it would be scary walking through the cemetery. I actually had a friend of mine, Junior Wilson, that worked in the cemetery later. And he was a grave digger. Hard job. And he told me one day about working really late. Everybody else had left, and he was still finishing up, and he laid down beside the grave to take a nap, and he accidentally rolled into the grave. And he was a good friend. He transitioned about 2 years ago. But he rolled into the grave, he jumped up several times and couldn't quite reach it and couldn't get out. And then a drunk guy came walking through the cemetery. Lots of people walk through this cemetery. And so he came and he fell into the grave. And so my friend Junior was leaning up against the corner of the grave, and so the drunk guy's jumping up trying to get out. And, after 5 minutes, Junior said, "Man, you can just keep trying. I've tried all night and I can't get out of here." And that guy blasted out of the grave. So sometimes it takes motivation. And I tell you that story simply so I can tell you that when I was walking through the cemetery going back home for my little date, sometimes I'd get scared and I would hum. And so you pursue your vision. You pursue your dream. And if you get scared, you keep walking. You keep moving. You keep believing. And if you need to sing to yourself or hum to yourself, that can help you sometimes to keep moving. But the most important thing, absolutely, is to keep moving. There is tremendous power in believing. And I'm believing right now, I don't know if this is going to really happen, but I'm believing that if I ask my singing partner, Karen, would you be willing to come up and sing a song?
Sure, Bill. I didn't say that.
Yeah. Please.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you think about Hanukkah?
Well, I know a lot more about Hanukkah now. Thank you.
You know a lot about it?
Yeah. Good morning. I feel like I was just here last night.
And what are we going to do?
This is a song called "This Is My Wish" by Jordan Sparks. This is my wish for the world, that peace would find its way to every boy and girl. And this is the time for harmony. Let love be the song that everybody sings. Fill the air with joyful noise. Ring the bells and raise your voice. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth. Lift your light and let it shine. Shine, shine, shine. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth. I hear the sweetest sound, the sound of hope to come. Together we can bring goodwill to everyone. Let it start with you. I'll let it start with me. Let every nation rise to sing this melody. Fill the air with joyful noise. Ring the bells and raise your voice. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth. Lift your light and let it shine. Shine, shine, shine. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Beautiful. So it is my privilege to talk about the peace. The peace. And the Christmas story is a little bit more familiar to most of us. And Karen said she knew enough about it that I didn't need to go into it too much. So I'll just say that the Christmas story is a beautiful story. And that no matter how we look at it, it is filled with hope and possibility and awe. But it's not just about a Jewish child that's born to Mary and Joseph over 2,000 years ago in a manger in a little town called Bethlehem. It is actually our story, each of us, all of our stories, the story, our own personal story at a very deep level. Now, the metaphysically, it represents a transformation in consciousness. It is the birth of our awakening to the truth that the Christ consciousness resides within each of us. And it is a moment of enlightenment, a interior journey of our awareness of the unfolding of our Christ consciousness. Now, Unity Minister Ed Townley says, metaphysically, what we celebrate each Christmas is the birth of Christ awareness. What Jesus brought to us was a spark of new light, new possibility, light that shines through the darkness of human confusion and illuminates the spiritual truth of who we are. Every Christmas is a new birth, a new opportunity for each of us to give birth to more of the light and to commit ourselves to nurturing that light, trusting it, believing in its presence within us, and sending it forth with every choice we make to bring more of it into expression. So metaphysically, what we celebrate each Christmas is not the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, nor is it the birth of the Christ, because the Christ consciousness arrived on the planet when each of us arrived on the planet, but the birth of our Christ awareness. So Christmas represents this birth of that awareness of the Christ presence that has expressed through us in human form. Jesus shows us in this birth and in his life how to live our lives from that Christ consciousness, from a context of peace. Every Christmas is an opportunity to deepen our awareness that Christ is the love and light of God that lives within each of us. Every Christmas is an opportunity to surrender or resurrender to allowing that to flow through and as us into our lives. Now, according to the biblical account of Christmas, the first announcement of the baby's arrival was made by angels to shepherds outside of Bethlehem. And they said, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill toward men." Throughout time, the theme of the Christmas season has been and continues to be peace. Even some of our most beloved Christmas carols speak to it. Silent night, holy night. All is calm, all is bright. Round yon virgin, mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace. Or it came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to men, from heaven's all-gracious King. The world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing. Or even, hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King, peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconcile. I mean, for God's sake, even Linus recites every year on the Charlie Brown Christmas special, peace on earth, goodwill to men. The whole entire season is about peace. In Isaiah 9, verse 6 through 7, it says, For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The idea of the Christ as the I Am presence within each of us is the child. The government shall be upon his shoulder is the idea of self-dominion that we powerfully step into when we quicken to perceive the truth, when we recognize who and what we are, when we stand in alignment with the Christ consciousness within. The names Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, given to the Christ shows a wide range of power and majesty. That the Christ consciousness, when it is received into the mind and cherished there, becomes all-pervasive. It becomes all things to all people. It is said that Prince of Peace is the last name on the list because that is the one aspect of the Christ consciousness that we most urgently need at this time. Individually and collectively, one's chief need is to recognize the peace that passes understanding. That yet this peace that was so well-founded that nothing could disrupt it, is something that our human minds cannot fully understand. But when we stand in a mind that is open to the truth of who we are, in a mind that is aligned with the Christ consciousness, in a mind that realizes that we are one in spirit, then anything can happen. Anything is possible. Peace can come about. This lasting peace described so often in our beloved Christmas carols can be established. And the more we stand in that, the more it becomes the reality of the world. Ernest Holmes says, peace is brought about through a conscious unity of the personal man with the inner principle of life. That underlying current flowing from a divine center, pressing ever outward into expression. But this can never come by proxy. We can hire others to work for us, to care for our physical needs, but no one can live for us. This we must do for ourselves. Joshua Becker, author of a book called The More of Less, gives some practical ways for us to give the gift of peace this holiday season. The first is to determine to be responsible for your attitude, not others. So we can only control our own attitude, right? We have to accept people where they are at any given moment. We can't make someone kinder or more compassionate or more peaceful, but we can be the change that we wish to see. We can be the change that we want to experience. We can be a place of kindness, a place of compassion, or a place of peace. In this way, when we become that which we wish to be, wish to see, wish to experience, then we draw that experience unto our lives. We draw the people that are that into our lives. So if you want to experience more peace, you have to be more peaceful. The second idea is to embrace humility. The invitation is to embrace humility or forgiveness, even if you are not the author of the conflict. If you're harboring resentment toward any other person, any other human being, holding them out of your heart for any reason whatsoever, choose to forgive and to move on. Assume the best of one another, and peace will flow through and as you. The third is to accept disagreement and to put it behind you. Not everyone is always going to agree with you. Trust me, I know this. But it is central to a loving relationship that we listen and hear rather than judging and lecturing. Be open to hear other ideas. Be open to welcoming other ideas. All right, be willing to be willing. We could start there. You don't have to agree with everything that others say or do or how they believe, but you can choose to be respectful. You can choose to honor their right to believe what they believe, to choose what they choose. The fourth is to take the first step. The invitation is to be bold enough to take the first step towards peace or reconciliation or unconditional love. The truth about our interactions with each other is that we have a say in the matter. We have a say in the way that they unfold. By choosing peaceful language, and that includes what comes out of your mouth and your body language, we can positively affect the interaction and create a more peaceful outcome. In Discover the Power Within You, Eric Butterworth gives a very metaphysical interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount. Now, in this sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus speaks about transformation, and he does so through an 8-verse poem that's been called the Beatitudes. I think of them as the Be-attitudes. How are you going to be? The particular beatitude that I'm talking about today, or that actually Eric Butterworth is going to talk about, is "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." Eric Butterworth says about this beatitude, the peace that we desire and that we need in the world is that peace which passes understanding. It cannot come by treaties or agreements or by wars and boundary lines. Peace can only come when men and women become receptive to it and become peacemakers in the process of expressing it from within. In the most dramatic way, the world around you will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. A little nod to Christmas there. As you change. An electric light doesn't have to go out into the room and try to sweep away the darkness. When the light is turned on, the light radiates and the darkness disappears. So the invitation today is that today, on the day of the birth of our awareness of the Christ consciousness within us, is to be the presence of peace. To allow that which we truly are at our very core to be expressed through and as us. And in doing so, we will assist in bringing forth peace on earth and goodwill toward men. And so it is. And in this moment, please invite up the love. Oh, she's already here. Just welcome her. Cindy Johnson.
Let's do it.
Just one life, it's all that we've been given here. Just one chance to make a difference where we live. I'm just one woman. I'm only human, but only human means I've got a lot to give. Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move
begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves a tree. Feel the wind of love increase as we move this world to peace. Come love the world with me. Look around, there's someone hurting near you. Look around, there must be something you can do. Look within you and find your spirit to change the world. There's got to be a change in you. Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move this world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move this world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move this world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Feel the wind of love increase as we move this world to peace.